What happened in Pitești left wounds so deep that Paul Goma, through the voice of a character in one of his novels, says, "Pitești is not something to talk about, it is something to be quiet about." The Pitești experiment, or the Pitești Phenomenon, is the vilest attempt made by communists to dehumanize individuals, to destroy their personality and fate through endless torture. The reeducation operation, which was carried out in Pitești between 1949 and 1952, was based on the ideas of the Soviet educator Anton Makarenko, an expert in juvenile delinquency. Makarenko, described by one of his contemporaries as the Bard of punitive pedagogy, opened camps in Soviet Russia to re-educate transgressing children and to turn them into new men. In Pitești, the one assigned to conduct the transformation process meant to turn the convict in the new man predicted by Makarenko was not the police force or prison guards, but other convicts. The mechanism was diabolical. The prisoners, regardless of their political orientation, were beaten and terrorized day and night by other prisoners. The torture they were subjected to was beyond imagination. Their minds were altered, and to escape the ordeal, they confessed anything, denied their past, gave up their fate, and disowned their families. Re-education ended when the re-educator considered that the victim had become the person the regime wanted and accepted to re-educate other convicts in the same manner. It is important to understand that the victim who becomes a torturer is no longer a victim, and although everyone is guilty, paradoxically everyone is blameless. The experiment, initiated by the Communist Party, was executed in secret by convicts loyal to the regime. Eugen Țurcanu, born in 1925 in Suceava County, was a tall, strong, ambitious, and intelligent man who wanted to have a successful career more than anything. He joined the Brotherhood of the Cross, an organization for the youth within Corneliu Zilea Codreanu's Legionnaire movement, and broke any connection with the Legion when it was outlawed. After the 23rd of August 1944, when Romania broke away from the Axis and sided with the Allies, Țurcanu joined the Communist Party and started building his career. Well regarded by the local authorities for his activity, in 1948 he became a member of the Office Party in Iași and was sent to Bucharest to attend a school for diplomats. He stood out as a very good student and became an informer, a role which he chose without hesitation. He was to be sent to Berna on a mission, but his career in politics ended abruptly. When he was in the Brotherhood of the Cross, Țurcanu met Alexandru Bogdanović, a legionnaire who remained faithful to the movement even after it was banned. Bogdanović recognized Țurcanu, and following a discussion the two had, Țurcanu denied passionately his past. Eventually, they made an agreement. Țurcanu was not to turn the legionnaires to the police, while Bogdanović and his friends were never to mention Țurcanu's past. But everything fell apart on May 15, 1948, when police arrested the legionnaires who were students at the universities in Bucharest, Cluj, Iași, Timișoara. A student from Iași told the police about Țurcanu, and he was arrested at the same time with the Bogdanović group. Țurcanu never forgave Bogdanović, who would later die in Pitești during the re-education process, which in his case was conducted personally by Țurcanu. Bogdanović was fiercely tortured and resisted for a while. When he died, his pancreas and teeth were broken, the intestine perforated, and he was bleeding profusely. Țurcanu was sentenced to 7 years and was sent to the prison in Suceava. The process of re-education began here in a non-violent way, with the goal to teach the Marxist doctrine through readings and debates. Țurcanu and several other students formed a group named the Organization of Convicts with Communist Ideas, and shortly after he met Alexandru Nicolski, the leader of the state security. Nikolsky, whose real name was Boris Grunberg, promised Tsurcanu to release him sooner and to give him a position in the state security department if he applied re-education through violence. Tsurcanu agreed and, choosing a team loyal to him, went to Pitești in 1949. At the middle of November 1949, 15 young men who had not embraced the communist ideology were brought to room number 4 Hospital of Pitești prison, where they were greeted by other 15 convicts, Tsurcanu's group. Tsurcanu's group behaved friendly and Tsurcanu himself engaged in a conversation with Sandu Angelescu, who was a royalist. Being young and unsuspecting, they opened up before Tsurcanu's group, telling things they had not disclosed during the interrogations and expressing their concern that their relatives could be arrested too. On December 6, 1949, a guard asked Sandu Angelescu to take off his green pullover and to cease playing the legionnaire. Angelescu answered he had never been a legionnaire and was never accused of being one. On the contrary, he had been arrested for being a royalist. The guard insisted, and Angelescu, having no choice, handed him his pullover. After the guard left the cold and heated cell, Angelescu cursed him. Right then, Tsurcanu slapped him heavily and yelled, "How dare you, bandit, to curse a guard?" A fight started, but it was stopped by the director, Dumitrescu, and the guards. Angelescu, who was the room leader, told the director that Tsurcanu's group attacked them without being provoked. The director yelled angrily at Tsurcanu, who promptly reported that he was a member of a group of re-educated young men who had formed an organization, the Organization of Convicts with Communist Ideas, and got attacked by the bandits when he recommended them to change their attitude and activity and joined his organization. The director wouldn't listen and ordered Angelescu's group to be stripped naked, laying on the cold cemented floor and beaten with clubs and iron bars by the guards. Then their bleeding bodies were left at the discretion of Tsurcanu's group. It is obvious it was all staged. On the 6th of December 1949, the terror in Pitești began. Tsurcanu's power had no limits. He could open the door cell any time and ask the guards to bring in another convict. The other convicts and even the guards addressed him as Sir. Re-education means torture, beating, infliction of severe pain. Torture was applied without cessation, and the victim being re-educated shared the same cell with the re-educator. The convicts held in Pitești, who were male students, fell into 4 groups. The first included those imprisoned without a judge's decision and served 6 to 7 years. The second included convicts for minor crimes like failing to turn someone in, favoritism, or mere suspicion. They were in for 3 to 5 years of corrective imprisonment. Most of the convicts made up the third group, and they were accused of machinations against social order, receiving for that 8 to 15 years of harsh imprisonment. The fourth was made up of group leaders or personalities capable to exercise a strong influence over the other students. They were sentenced between 10 to 25 years of hard labor. The re-education process conducted by Tsurcanu had 4 stages. 1. External unmasking. The convict had to show his loyalty to the Organization of Convicts with Communist Ideas and to the Communist Party, revealing under torture everything he had hidden during interrogation. He was forced to disclose his accomplices and any connection he was still keeping with those outside. 2. Internal unmasking. At this stage, the convict had to reveal to Tsurcanu the names of the other convicts who encouraged and advised him to be prudent, re-educators who had not been violent, or guards who had done them any favor. After these 2 stages, they obtained more information than the state security did during their interrogation process. All the new information was then sent to the Ministry of Internal Affairs. 3. Moral unmasking made in public. At this stage, the convict was wrecked psychologically. He was forced to blaspheme all he held sacred: God, family, parents, spouse, and himself. The minutest details of one's past were analyzed, and based on them, the most monstrous scenarios were invented. The father was presented as a scoundrel, a bandit. Sons of priests were forced to detail erotic scenes in the altar their parents presumably engaged in. Their mothers and sisters were depicted as prostitutes, having allegedly committed incest with their sons and brothers. In the final stage of re-education, the convict was asked to re-educate his best friend to become his torturer. Țurcanu was always dissatisfied. The lowest depth of baseness seemed to not have been reached. His sick mind imagined the most horrendous torture in the case of students of theology or of faithful ones. Some were baptized each morning. To be more specific, their heads were dipped in a bucket filled with urine and fecal matter, while the others were forced to sing the service of baptism. During the Passion Week, the convicts were made to sing a black liturgy with obscene words. The student who played the priest had his naked body clothed in a bedsheet covered in excrement and wore around his neck a phallus made of insecticide, soap, and bread. At Easter, the convicts were forced to kiss the phallus and say, "Christ is risen." If Țurcanu caught any sign betraying one's feelings and emotions the experiment was supposed to destroy, the re-education process was restarted from the beginning. Regarding physical torture, in Pitești, the re-educators used anything they could imagine. Parts of the body were burnt with a cigarette, flesh became necrotic and fell off, beatings with iron bars until losing one's consciousness, teeth were broken, nails removed, forced eating of excrement, the mouth stuffed with vomit. Hearing such things, one legitimately can ask if anyone committed suicide in Pitești. Many attempted to, but failed. There were no forks or knives. Food was given in a tin box which the convicts were forced to eat from like dogs without using their hands. Many tried to bite off their veins, to crash their heads against the walls, or to eat soap, but each time they were prevented from killing themselves by the re-educators who were watching them constantly. Someone managed to commit suicide. Șerban Gheorghe, a student, jumped from the 5th floor when they were taken to have a shower. The convicts were allowed to take a shower once every other week, but not for humanitarian reasons. The administration feared a pandemic could break out. After the incident, a net was placed between floors, and from then on, no suicide was possible in Pitești. The tortured could only shed tears and cry desperately for death to come. The experiment was applied in other prisons as well. Re-educated students who became re-educators were sent to the Canal, Gherla, Ocnele Mari, and Târgu Ocna. Țurcanu continued to have control over the whole experiment, but in prisons, rumor began to circulate. The other convicts were advised to stay away from the student convicts, particularly those who were their friends. At Gherla, torture was applied for the sake of torture, and more people died there than in Pitești. Also in Gherla, re-education was applied to old people as well. In Târgu Ocna Penitentiary, it was not possible to apply the experiment because the convicts suffered from tuberculosis, were terminally ill or disabled, and could have not resisted when the main procedure, that is endless torture, was used. The detainees were obliged to unmask themselves to get medicine for their illness or to be moved out from their cells depleted of oxygen. The incident which brought the experiment to an end occurred at the Canal. Dr. Simionescu, who had been a member of Octavian Goga's cabinet in 1938, was arrested for his contacts with the leaders of the National Peasant Party. Dr. Simeonescu was no longer able to endure the torture, and feeling his end was close, he threw himself in the barbed wire fence and got shot. Others claimed he was pushed in the barbed wire fence by the torturer Bogdanescu. His death could not be concealed, and when his wife found out, she made a scene at the Ministry of Internal Affairs. She was arrested, but the news spread fast. To avoid the news to be picked up by Western media, the Voice of America, BBC or Free Europe, the Ministry of Internal Affairs had to open an investigation, although, as mentioned previously, they initiated the whole experiment. The death of Dr. Simeonescu shortened the experiment and saved others' lives. Pretending to wish to reward their efforts, the Communist Party asked the torturers to recount all their crimes in detail. Thousands of pages were filled, but they disappeared without a trace after the trial. The storyline provided by the party was as follows. The torturers were agents of the Legionnaire leader Horia Sima, who was in exile. They followed his order to take advantage of the guards' lack of vigilance, which was indeed regrettable, to use violence and to destroy the Communist Party and the socialist order. The scenario was so absurd that they gave up promoting it through their propaganda apparatus. As expected, during the trial, which was held in secret, the organization of convicts with communist ideas was never mentioned because everything had to look like a fascist action. The trial began in October 1954, 2 years after the experiment was stopped, and the sentence was issued in December 1954. It is important to mention that what happened in Pitești, the whole experiment, was not against a certain political ideology. The victims were liberals, members of the Peasants' Party, royalists, legionnaires, even socialists who did not agree with the agenda of the Communist Party. The events in Pitești must not be forgotten, for, as British statesman Winston Churchill wrote, those that fail to learn from history are doomed to repeat it. Also, we must not judge them. There, everyone tortured everyone. It was hell on earth. Those who survived didn't seek revenge. They forgave their torturers and prayed for their salvation.
Doamne, poporul tău și